Welcome back to It's Okay Garage. Today we're going to be installing that FB25 into the Outback. So let's get it all hooked up and ready to install. Now we got the motor all hooked up to the cherry picker. We're going to tilt it kind of like this. So we bring in those aligner dowels into the transmission, slide it in, and then we'll hook up that front motor mount. Once that's all hooked up, we'll go through the window and hook up the torque converter to that plate with those 4 bolts. And then once I'm underneath the car, I will bolt the exhaust up to the header and get the exhaust and everything from underneath that I need to get. So some of those bell housing bolts that I need to get from underneath, I will do. So let's jump right into that. Now we got the motor mount all in place with those 4 bolts right there. And then the one going through. I got 2 in the bell housing so we can hold the motor up. We got this one in and then the one that's in between the starter. So now we can move on to putting the starter on with that nut and then the bolt. And then I'll crawl underneath and do those other bell housing bolts that I can't get to. Well, as I'm down there, like I said, I will do the exhaust. So those 3 nuts on the exhaust. And then the one that goes to the back of the transmission. And then on top, we'll throw this power steering on with those 4 bolts. Throw on the AC compressor with those 4 bolts. Basically start plugging things in. So let's start off with get all the bell housing bolts on, the starter on, and then these 2 pulleys. Now we got the power steering pump on and the AC pump on. We're gonna throw that alternator on. I just kept this hand loose so we can get the alternator on fairly easy. And then once that's on, we're gonna run these wires over and get this all plugged in. And also for the power steering, it's back there, so we got that one plugged in as well. I got the alternator and everything on. I'm going to put this belt on and then plug all that in. You're going to use a 15 for this tensioner, move it out of the way, and then we'll run the belt on, and I'll show you a little diagram here in a second. So that's how it goes on, up, round, round, all that. I would put it all in place, have it over that, and then leave for the water pump to be the last one on. And then go ahead and do that, and then you just push it onto the water pump. That seemed to be the smoothest way to do it. Probably move on to the radiator, getting the plugs all plugged in back there, all these fuel lines hooked up, get all your heater core lines, your brake booster line. Then we can move on to the cold air intake and battery. After that, we're probably good to fill it up with coolant and oil and get it started up. Also, don't forget the 2 ground straps on each side that go up to the heads, mounting to the main frame. Now that everything else is completely done, jump into doing the radiator. Don't forget, for the automatics, plug in those transmission cooler lines and then the 2 fans. And then we'll do the cold air intake. You got the 1 hose that goes into the bottom side of it, plug it in, bolt it down and plug it in, and we'll top it off with some fluids. Got everything put back on, cold air intake bolted on, radiator bolted in with the plastic piece back on. Just topped off the fluid. We gotta run and get an oil filter. Got the hood back on. So once we get new oil filter in and oil changed, we're ready to start it up. So let's go get all that taken care of, and then we'll get that first start up. Got that oil all put in. Make sure you prime your fuel rails as well. So give the key just into turn on position to start it up a few times. It'll just prime the system. We're gonna get that first start up. Also, just make sure all your fluids are checked, see if there's anything leaking. Just like that, we got that FB25 all put back in and running. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you in those next builds.